With me for with me for the day is passionate fellow autism advocate Sara Bradford. She is the founder of SJ Childs Global Network, nonprofit, an organization that positively impacts the lives of many families. Sara is also the CEO of SJ Childs LLC, an autism consulting business that provides support to families. As a member of the Autism Council of Utah, Sara remains actively involved with the autism community. Sara's husband and two children are also autistic, which has given her a unique perspective and better understanding of the challenges faced by families with autism. She is a global speaker on the autism and the host of the SJ Childs Show podcast, where she provides valuable education and resources to families. Sara continues to strengthen her community by partnering with local universities and hospitals for autism programs, train police, and corporate organizations. Finally, Sara is the published author under the pen name SJ Childs, covering subjects such as autism, dyslexia, physical differences, anxiety, and more. These books help children understand themselves and support their peers with neurodiverse needs, promoting love and inclusion in every situation. She now understands autism more since she recently got diagnosed with ASD. Let's welcome the accomplished Sara Bradford, aka SJ Childs, to the show. Sara Bradford, how you doing?
Hi, Sam. So good to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Not a problem. So my first question to you is, what does being involved with autism? Well, my first question to you is, what does being involved with the autism world mean to you?
Oh, it means so much to me now that not only, almost 15 years ago did we find out that our son was autistic and kind of led us on this journey, but meaning my husband, myself, and two kids, have all found out that we're on the spectrum as well. So we're able to support one another kind of I think, in a unique way that maybe hasn't been talked about before or really looked at in a way that can help families around the world.
Can you go into more what do you mean by, in your view, a unique way?
I think that because we can maybe look back at our own perspective or our own experiences and see what could have helped more, or how we could have been maybe more understand had somebody been more understanding to us, or kind of believe us rather than the way that it did happen. And so I think that it gives us an opportunity to help our kids be understood and come to us knowing that we relate to them more than maybe they believe we can. They are teenagers.
Right. Teenagers are teenagers at the same time.
Yeah.
You were talking about being diagnosed. When did you believe you were um showing signs of autism?
So now when I look back at my actual childhood, it was when I was so small. I had an incredible memory. I was speaking super fast and very early. I would like memorize rock albums and all of the years that all the songs were written in. I was like 4. And just these insane, my neighbors and some family friends would always be like, this, she is so smart, she's super smart. They'd call me Super Sarah. And so that was kind of this, just like this joke. My parents unfortunately they didn't have that understanding that that was a thing that was special or unique or autistic. For example, also hearing, I have really sensitive hearing because I have these little tiny ears, like I was mentioning earlier. I have the outer ear microtia is what it's called. And me and my children, and it runs heredity in my family, and it gives me at least a sense of like really really sensitive hearing. So when I was little in the 70s, the garbage trucks and things like that, they didn't have the same type of hydraulics and like braking systems, and I would literally have to hide in my bedroom under pillows because it would hurt my body to hear the garbage trucks coming. And it wasn't until literally into my adult life, not like maybe to within this last year, that I've like recognized the trauma that that caused me. So anyways, I hope that now that I can see those types of things. Now, what led me to go get a diagnosis, that was looking at my own daughter, who is extremely intelligent, spoke super quickly, and had this like old soul about her, and really made me realize, wait a second, if she's autistic and I was like her when I was little, maybe there's something to this. And so I went in and found out. And I thought at first I would just like burst out, on my podcast and on lives and everything, I'm autistic, but it took like 5 months for me to really like sit with the information and uncover what it meant for me and how it affected me, and like kind of go over those things from childhood, so it's been an interesting journey that way.
I bet it has. So, what were your initial thoughts when you saw you were going to be involved with the autism world?
I mean, I think initially I really didn't know much, so I jumped in and just like did as much research as possible. And then it really started to be kind of showing up for my kiddos. And then once I started to see that kind of like people around me were needing the information, then it showed me how much value it had to be shared. So it's been really special.
I can imagine how special it is. So, based on your observations, how do you think a person with an autism brain operates?
Out of the box, honestly, literally, possibly with quirks or no quirks. It's really individualized, and I think that that's something that the media wants to portray better, but maybe doesn't really understand how or know how to do so. So I hope to see that happen in the future. Not to mention the number of autism diagnoses that are going to be reevaluated for 2025, and the whole new number is going to be coming out. So that'll be really interesting.
I can imagine because it's just growing and growing and growing. I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
Yeah. So I think that the world has to get on board, because at one point, at the rate it's growing, it's going to be one versus, one and one. So it needs to have a better understanding of how to be accommodating around the board.
It better, or there's going to be a lot of people going to. It better be. There's going to be a lot of people lost in this world, and it will not be a safer place.
Agreed. Yeah.
So, what is the most rewarding and the most difficult part about being in the world of autism?
Oh, that's a great question, Sam. Oh man. Okay. The most rewarding part is, gosh, it has two parts. The most rewarding part has two parts. My family, number one, obviously, number one. Like, they teach me how to be a better person. They give me the space to do that. They help me learn the lessons to do that. But then the second part of that is that I get to take all of that and teach the community and help the children who don't have a voice, to help the teenagers feel understood and valued, to help the adults that have never had a place feel like they can have a place to fit in finally and belong. And I think that that's really the reward. And I think the challenge comes in, this might be controversial, but I think the challenge comes in the state of the autistic community banding together and not trying to disarm one another with petty arguments about things that don't fulfill our main purpose. So I hope that wasn't too huge of an
Can
answer.
you go into that, please?
So I just think that sometimes that, there's been times where I've left groups or, been in situations where it's been more arguments about a symbol or a company or a specific name rather than it has been about what's the solution? How do we come together? How do we move forward? Those are real answers. Arguing about this a symbol of something, it doesn't have value at the end. Like there's not going to be happiness across the board. Nobody's going to completely agree with it. But what we all can agree on is that we want society to be built better accessible for us in the ways that we need it to be. And we want to come to the table and be able to bring those ideas and be heard and respected. And so I think that it's a really unique opportunity to have someone like Elon Musk, in such a powerful and like seen position to really help forward the idea that autistics are outside the box, inventive, unique individuals that have purpose and every human does. And so I think that's the challenge, is us remembering that we're all in it together and not trying to disband one another.
Right. I can see what you mean with that. So, what advice would you give to others who want to be involved with the autism community?
Oh, there's so many ways. There's so many nonprofits or organizations. And if you don't know of any, go to your local library, school, community center, and I'm sure that they could lead you in the right direction. I think that learning about autism, learning, maybe really finding the most updated information, because there is a lot of information and it has been coming out for a long time. So I think that it's important that people get that, updated look at things rather than something like, oh, my aunt gave me this book, when she was 16 in 1983 about autism. I mean, get like a real up to date information. And there's really unique ways to do it these days. There's TikToks and YouTube and Love on the Spectrum and Atypical and shows that reflect it on autism, and, amazing documentaries like Understanding Autism, and just some ways that really better reflect the, like you kind of had brought up, the rewards and challenges that an autistic individual can face.
Right. So, essentially, what you're saying is use social media to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I think that we're both doing it that way. And I think it's a good example.
Hey, we're doing it right now. So, what made you want me on the SJ Childs podcast? Because I do want to get into that a little more about your show.
Yeah, thanks. I had written children's books to kind of help better advocate for my kids, and was just going on to other podcasts to promote the books. And through that, people just loved my story and really encouraged me to start my own show. At first I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about, what it was going to look like. I didn't have a script. I didn't send people questions. I literally just decided I'm going to get on and I'm going to have these conversations. And then it flew off, like flew. And it just, I kept doing all the interviews and getting to know so many people and getting all of these opportunities. And it's grown so much. 300 episodes almost, and it's been a wonderful way to meet other autistics, to get their point of views and their, discover their skills and challenges, and really be able to talk about it and highlight those things. but then it also helped me gain confidence to do the events. And, I have to give you guys credit too, because you guys are kind of like you and your mom are kind of my event mentors, like goals for in-person events someday. I hope to do as much as you guys are doing in my own town here. But it really is nice that the online events have been so successful and so well taken by the community. Oh, you're muted.
There's rewards and challenges for both online and in person, but why don't you tell us some about your online events?
Yeah, on the online events, we started in 2022 with the 1 in 44 tour, and you were a part of that. And it was just such an amazing 2 days of autistic speakers. We had music performers, podcasters, live podcasts going, such as Autism Rocks and Rolls, and just some amazing people that came. And through that, I realized that there was really like a need and a want for and from the autism community to be a part of those types of events. And so I decided to keep doing them. And I did a safety event, the 1 in 36 mix, when the numbers changed the next year to 1 in 36. And then I decided, okay, let's go bigger. Let's do an international autism summit. So in April, I held the International Autism Summit, where we found advocates from so many different countries. And it was incredible to hear them come and speak. And we even had a non-speaking individual, a German non-speaking individual whose therapist and translator gave his presentation, for him. It was just so amazing. There's just not enough to be like understood and said about a human's experience until they're able to really tell you what that is.
I think it reminds us too, because sometimes as advocates, we forget there's other people out there who are in our boat.
Mm-hmm. Yep, going through the same experience. And a lesson that I really love that someone shared to me a long time ago that I forget all the time. Isn't that how it goes? But is that there's always somebody ahead of you in your journey, standing right next to you in your journey, someone behind you in your journey. And if you have that 3-tiered approach to your relationships with advocacy, you can really help people be helped and be a helper, so it's amazing.
Right. You were talking about lessons. What are some of the lessons you hope people will learn while listening to the SJ Childs podcast?
I hope that they understand. It is a mostly parenting and education podcast. We do have some like self-help and other things like that, but I really want people to get a fresh way of looking and thinking about how to parent a child on the autism spectrum, and maybe if they are an autistic adult, how to better accommodate work experiences, transitions, how to better communicate with emergency responders and service providers. I think it's a really important piece that can be overlooked in a person's life, and then they go into something chaos and emergency and things go wrong. And I think that being better prepared by understanding how to better communicate with those kind of people can go a long way.
Yeah, maybe you start singing the Lion King song, being prepared in our heads.
There we go. I love it.
That was one I loved growing up. So when you say be prepared, that's the song that always hits me in the head.
Nice.
So, what about the guests? Tell us some of the guests and episodes you've done on the SJ Childs
Oh,
podcast.
gosh, I would be doing a disservice to miss the 300 guests and not name all of them. But I have had guests such as Temple, who
And
is
for the listeners, CU24 pictures on the ranch from Temple Grant for more information.
yes, absolutely. Temple Grandin, Stephen Mark Shore, who is now the voice of Carl the Collector in the PBS children's animated series. I'm not quite sure the name of the cartoon itself, but that's his character. Actually just so many amazing advocates. Sam, you've been on the show. I've had people from my community here in Salt Lake. I've had just guests from around the world. Of course, it's exciting when um did hold the events. I met some new people, so I wanted them to be guests on the show to advocate for their services and things they provide. I just launched a new website, a new logo and brand for SJ Childs. And, on my new website is like the list of my partners, and it is a beautiful grand list. And you can go there and click on anybody's logo to go to their website and information. And I just want I want to help lift everyone the way I feel like it's happened for me.
Right. You're forgetting a couple of guests though that I've had too.
Oh my gosh,
Louis,
right?
yeah, I know. I'm that nitpicky. Um, Luis Marinucci, and
Yes.
for listeners C233, and for listeners C234 from the Deep Blue Sea with Luis Marinucci from North Formation. Probably butchering his name, but hey, I tried. And our friend Simon Majumdar.
Oh, Simon was a wonderful. And it was great because I think that Simon and Temple were very close to time that I did their recordings, and I was able to take some of the information that Temple and I had talked about incorporating more more autistically pleasing visuals in TV shows. And so Simon and I talked about creating clear containers for all of the cooking shows so that everything could be seen clearly while it was happening through those. So anyway, that was really fun to talk to him about that thing.
I missed that part while I
Yeah.
watched your interview. I'll have to take a peek at it. For my
Yeah.
listeners, see 117 into Simon Jumdar's Cookcast, more information. But I do want to get into your network. So why don't you tell us about your new website and the SJ Childs Global Network?
It's incredible, Sam. It's just it's still in its baby form. I'm still like a baby with my little feet. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'm learning as I go. And I think
So
that's
we
the
have
most.
little ears, now we have little feet.
That's
Wow.
right. I'm kind of like this little person. I'm only 5'2". People don't know that. I'm just kind of little. It is funny when you meet people in person and you're like, "Oh my gosh." It's funny when that happens, isn't it? Can't wait to do that someday. But anyways, the global network. So, I knew that I wanted to do more. I create these vehicle kits for vehicles to have a safer experience in an emergency, as I am passionate about, apparently. And so, um, through that, I really think that I needed to create a way for people to want to donate for a purpose and want to know that what they were donating to was really going to something valuable and meaningful that were going to help not only families but the emergency responders and people that were helping these families, because it's all important when it's in that type of a situation that everybody gets as much support and understanding and as can be. So created the SJ Childs Global Network, and the website just launched this last Friday, sjchilds.org. And it is amazing. It showcases everything, all of the work that I've done. I do have training courses available now, which I've never been able to do before. So that's exciting. And my books and the podcast, and it's just like it's its own universe. It's the SJ Childs universe.
The SJ Childs universe. Huh, I like that. Hey, instead of the MCU, SJU.
I like it.
Or SJCU.
There we go, right? Oh, funny.
So you're talking about your books. Why don't we get into your books a little bit? So did you start the books? When did you start seeing these books were growing?
Yeah, I would say I think I started writing the books in 2018, and then I actually wrote probably 10 to 13 books, published 7 of them. So I still have some unfinished or like unfinished and unpublished books that I've have as projects that someday I'll do. But it really just started for wanting to like my neighbor kids, and my kids were really little at the time, preschool and elementary first and second grade. So I just wanted their peers to understand that their differences were what made them special. And so it was that kind of like an endearing hope for my kids, but it did grow. It did grow into more people wanting them for their kids to teach them about special needs, and for teachers to teach their classes and their other students how to support kiddos that, were different than them.
So you probably, yeah, I definitely can see that. You've been asked this probably 1,000 times, but why don't you tell us some of the characters in your books?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, the characters are dear to my heart. They are the pretty much the names of my children. Anna DJ, who is a bear with autism. Anna is a kitten with physical differences that has a kitten with little ears. Um, and then I have a really great friend named Jackman, and he has Down syndrome. And so I wrote a book about Jackman and being one of the most loving people that I've ever met. And that was a wonderful. And then my childhood was really anxiety filled. And so I wrote a book about Wiley the worried worm, who is anxiety filled and has to learn how to manage and cope with his anxiety. So that one was based on me. And then Anna, my daughter, and I wrote a book, an ABC book, which at the age of 8, she illustrated. And so she has her own published illustrated book. That was a lot of fun. It was just a simple ABC book. And then one more. Oh, I did a Santa Claus book with DJ because my son DJ loves Santa Claus and his relationship with Santa Claus. And we've been so lucky that there was a Santa we met over a decade ago, and we have remained friends with him for every single year we see him specifically. And now he, can say really specific things when he talks to DJ, and it makes it just so special, Sam.
Hey, we're gonna meet Santa again this year too, because sometime next month I'm having a breakfast with Santa. So not only am I gonna be seeing Santa, he's my employee for the night.
I love it.
I guess I did have to bribe him with some cookies though, so it took a
There you
little bit
go.
of that.
Makes
Instead of paying him in dollars, I paid him in cookies
it.
and a little bit of milk too. So you also do consulting. So what are some of the strategies you do to show that their loved one having autism is fine? Because let's face it, a lot of parents, I know my mother, and see when if I meet my mother for more information, and I know you did, thought my life is over.
Mm. It was really tricky when we first kind of wrestled with the idea of learning something new, and it was overwhelming. I have learned a lot of lessons along the way. I think I've been one of the luckier moms, and your mom too, perhaps, in that I've had the chance to have so many conversations with so many individuals that have taught me how to better understand maybe the proper ways to have the conversation with that individual, to be very dignified and respectful and gentle with the words that you use. And so I think that that's given me a really a great ledge to parent from too, especially with, a daughter who is in middle school. And I think middle school is a really hard time in life in general, and then to be neurodiverse on top of it can definitely create some challenges. So just being able to understand and be there is more than I can have imagined. think I probably
Right.
went away from that question a little. I
Don't worry
veered.
about it.
Weird.
It veered a little bit, but you answered it. Who cares? Honestly.
Love it.
So when you do consulting, out of curiosity, what is the number one worry parents have? Maybe the number one worry is by chance they're afraid their life is over. And if that is the case, okay. What's number two?
Oh, I think that now I remember. Okay. I think that a lot of parents are concerned because they don't have information. They don't know where to look, they don't know how to get it. Go to one doctor, they get one set of instructions and it doesn't fit them and then they feel lost. So I think a really good advice is to get tons of information. A book I always highly recommend and get no accolades whatsoever for this, just the love and affection for the book and the person who wrote it, is Uniquely Human by Dr. Barry Prezant. I think that it wonderfully showcases the idea that all behavior is a form of communication. And the more you're curious about finding out what the communication is that's trying to be portrayed, the better success you'll have in helping somebody who may not be communicating in a typical way.
Right. Right. I would go with you there. I would definitely agree with you there. So you're also a member of the Autism Council of Utah. How did you get involved with the Autism Council of Utah?
My friend who is an autism real estate specialist here in Utah, she got involved and I followed suit. I just saw that they were doing amazing things and wanted to be a part of it. And it was a pretty easy process online. You just sign up to be a member and they just, send out newsletters to say what events they're going to be holding. And it was really fortunate when I wanted to do my own personal police training in my own city, they came to do that training with me. And they were like 10 times had more like of a professional presentation and everything. It was my first time. So I learned a lot from them, which was really great experience.
Right. So what are some responsibilities you have? What are some of the responsibilities you have to do as a member of the Autism Council of Utah?
Yeah, absolutely nothing. There are no requirements or anything, as it's just more voluntary when you can, come and help or kind of be a part of their activities and things that they do, fundraisers.
What? Gotcha. How can people get involved with the Autism Council of Utah if they're interested?
Just go to their website. It's just, just Google that exact thing, Autism Council of you, or yeah, you said it correctly. Now I can't say it right. But yeah, you just Google that and then and I think you probably can do that for every state that you're in. I'm sure that you could, find out if there's some type of an autism council. Not only does it help you to get involved with somebody that might have a lot of access to events and other resources. So yeah, it's a really good resource to use if you can get a hold of them.
All right. I'll make sure to definitely promote them if I can. So we also know, as you say, your husband is on the autism spectrum. So how did you come to find out that your husband had autism?
It was so funny, Sam. We were actually at um a neurological exam for my son. We were having his IQ tested because I don't know if you remember or not, but DJ has a 99% working memory and a photographic memory, and he is very highly academically advanced. And so we were at this interview, and in the ADOS test is an autism test basically that you do to kind of see where an individual might be on the autism spectrum. And I had filled one out several times for DJ in the past. And so while I was filling that out, it started to occur to me that a lot of the things I was checking were things I hadn't previously realized were also traits that my husband had. And I went home with the information and presented it to him and said, "Oh my gosh, I think I understand. I understand why you haven't wanted to go eat at restaurants for the last whatever years that you've existed. I understand why you take these strangely timed naps a lot." And it just lined up with a lot of things that DJ had been going through that I had seen maybe as challenges more than just biological ways of being. And so when I was more able to see that was this man that I love, and he didn't want to go to restaurants and eat around people because he couldn't stand the sound of it or the sight of things like that. And then here's my son who won't be around anybody who's eating ever. And so I realized that, oh my gosh, wait a second. This might I might be onto something here. And I told my husband Dustin, I think that, at the time I said, "You have Asperger's." And he said, "Okay." And so he got to thinking about it and then really realized that it made a lot of sense for him, for his life growing up, for the way he felt misunderstood and kind of outside the box thinking and all of these ways. And yeah, it really just it suited him well. So that's how that happened.
Well, I can relate. Mine's not restaurants, but I got a place that, oh my gosh, it's a nightmare, and I'll go to it, but it better be for a good reason why I'm going to it, or I ain't going. Concerts.
Oh,
Getting in and out of these stinking concerts. Oh my gosh. Organize it better. We're
yeah.
not cattle.
Yeah, yeah. No, I have a really hard time with like underground parking lots and things that get too crowded and things like that. I completely agree. In fact, I overcame one of the biggest fears of my life, I think. And I haven't overcome it. I won't go that far. But my I went to a haunted house this year with my teenage daughter, and I had to crawl through a black tunnel in the middle of the haunted house to go to the next room. And I thought I was probably going to die in the tunnel or just pass out and they were going to have to pull me out or something. But my sweet, sweet, brave child dove in front of me, and I dove in after her and hung onto her foot, and she guided me all the way through.
Well, your dog's a lot more braver in haunted houses than I am, because my issue with haunted houses is I don't get scared. I get mad. Like,
Oh,
when you startle me, it's like, you.
better not have done that. I can appreciate that. Oh,
Yeah, it's not a happy time when Sam goes into a haunted house. Now, if he's being the clown, that's a different story.
there you go.
All right. So before, well, and just try again. Just out of curiosity, does your husband remember any of the signs growing up that he thought, "Oh, I am on the autism spectrum"?
Yeah, he was also diagnosed ADHD. And so I think that a lot of those things transpose over one another. But like chewing on collars possibly might have been a sign. Toe walking might have been a sign. Constant like aggravation towards authority might have been a sign. I think there were a lot of ways that but then again, it wasn't he was never viewed that way. He was viewed as being misbehaving and being a bad kid. And so he had a rough childhood and grew up mostly in group homes and detention centers. Yeah, so unfortunately he can has the opportunity and obviously has taken it to be a stand-up adult, to be a hardworking husband, dad, like incredible dad, so loving and caring. And just yeah, it's we our family is just so lucky we all have each other because we all fulfill kind of a piece that makes it what it is, you know?
You're on a team, and your blood's
Exactly.
even better.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Now, folks, we wrap back. We're going to hear from our new friends, Dr. Horn. So let's get to it. All right, folks, are back. And you're not going to hear from Dr. Horton, here's a who, but it's going to be from his brother, Dr. Horton. So I meant to ask you with your book. So Sarah, I meant to ask you with your books earlier. Is there a place where our listeners can go buy the books if they're interested?
Absolutely. Just go to my website, sjchilds.org. You can click on each book individually to go to its actual site to buy it, or you can just click on the shop at Amazon button and it'll take you straight to my author page.
All right, I'll make sure to put that in the show notes, maybe if I can remember. Now, you also, in your words from an interview, you said you celebrate autism in your house. So what exactly do you and your family do to celebrate autism in your house?
So I think that it started really with our daughter's diagnosis. We recognized that such a brilliant and wonderful human being, you know, there was no reason to like feel heavy or sad about such information, as more that it was a really exciting that we could all understand what strategies we might need to put in place for success in the future. And one quote that we always say is, a little bit of knowledge turns fear into understanding. And that's really the case, is that the more knowledge you have, the better help you can be.
Right. There's another one you say, it's your show motto, bringing values to families through education and resources. So when did you decide bringing values to family through education and resources was going to become your show motto? And why is this quote important to you?
Gosh, that's a great question. I guess the words really just came to me in trying to summarize what the show was about. I wanted people to understand it wasn't just me going on there and saying, "Hi, I'm a mom. Do this. These are the best things to do." It was me bringing value to them through educating them not only with experts and, professionals in the fields that would help them strategize better for success, but the most important piece are the autistic individuals themselves who can help answer the mystery questions and give hope to the families who see their non speaking autistic child and wonder if someday they'll have an opportunity to have a friend, to go to school, to, walk into a store without assistance, any of those things, to live on their own. And many of them won't, and many of them will. But I think more importantly, to teach and to hear from the autistics who were going through those really tough challenges and who are super successful today.
Right. I can definitely testify to that because, there's a lot of spectrums out there, and that's what I find fascinating too. You have one person who's maybe speaking who is on the autism. You have several like spectrum, and it's just so mind blowing that they're at different levels. You have one who's speaking, but the moment you put him in a grocery store, he's running out the store. But then you have someone who can't speak, but literally can go to a grocery store. It's mind blowing.
Yeah. 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 I think it's really important that maybe through this kind of autistic movement in society's education, that we'll possibly see that all humans are unique and individualized, and there it was never and have never been like a cookie cutter one way of doing things that's right for anyone. It's just very individual.
Right, I would agree with you on that. So there's something else behind your house home that you guys say a lot. expectations can lead to disappointment. So when did expectations can lead to disappointment become a saying in your home?
Mm. I think when you have a non-speaking child, number one, there should never be expectations that you might now hope and expectations are different, that you might hear from them or that they'll perform in some specific manner. I think that that's but it also it would also was related to our own adult experiences, in that when we were going into possibly, relationships that weren't healthy, well, if you had these expectations that it was going to go this exact way and it didn't, that just led you to disappointment. And instead of going with the flow and having a little bit more flexibility in your thinking, you had it set that it was going to be there at 5 and you were going to leave at 6 and it was going to be over at 7 and then it was going to be done. But things really did never even start till 9 o'clock. Like, yes, that, you have to be flexible sometimes and not just like rigid, which is a hard thing for a lot of autistics.
Here's a great example of that. So there's 2 trips I took in within a wide span. It was San Antonio, Texas, and Destin, Florida. Okay, first trip, San Antonio, Texas. Very rigid, very structured. Kind of got a little upset and frustrated when it wasn't going to plan. But going to Destin, before I went to Destin, my mother suggested, and maybe don't be so rigid, give it a try. There was some hesitation, but I was like, oh, all right, let's just see what happens. Did it, had a much more fun time than the previous one.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. Absolutely.
Did I ask you real quick I'm having a brain fart? Did I ask you questions already about you being on the spectrum?
A little bit. I think,
Uh,
and I don't know if that was in our first try or not.
that may have been too. So I got this. So we may or may not have talked about it. I've had a brain fart since then, but you're, so we may or may not have talked about this before. I'm having a brain fart, but we know now you're on the autism spectrum. So what made you think you were on the autism spectrum?
Yeah, I know, I remember we did when my daughter was diagnosed and I started to recognize all of the incredible talents and skills and things that possibly were referred to me as a child. And it gave me the idea that maybe I can understand my son and his classmates and some of the other adults that I've made friends with because I'm autistic. And so, I kind of made a little bubble question mark in my head. And yeah, it was a really fascinating and exciting experience. And I'll tell you what, the most incredible, I think, and powerful impact that it had was for my relationship with my husband. And we've already been friends and, spouses and lovers, all of that stuff for 20 years now. But finding out that we were both thinking the same way, that our brains both worked the same way, that maybe that's what had brought us together in the first place, was such like a beautiful special moment and feeling, and still something that we cherish between us.
Right. You also went through bullying. So when did the bullying
Yeah.
start?
Really early. I think that feeling different and, now looking at it and thinking, okay, yeah, you were autistic on top of having a physical difference that people could see. So I think that most of it was the physical bullying because nobody knew what I was going through intellectually or mentally. But it started really, really when I was really little, all through elementary school, middle school, high school, just and it's not like it was I'm gonna beat you up kind of a bullying. It was, haha, let's laugh at how you're different than everyone else and make a name up and call you by this name, and that's just like a degrading kind of self saddening thing that I didn't realize affected me so much until I was worried about my own kids having to go through it.
Mine was very similar, except mine wasn't let's make him awful. Mine was let's push him off because he's different than us and not following the popular trends.
Yeah, exactly.
So what advice would you give to others who are currently being bullied for being differently abled?
Mm. Well, I mean, at some point, you have to have enough love for yourself. You need to learn how to do that. And that's really tricky because you have to be in a right environment to be able to do that. I read something really interesting the other day that said you can't heal in the environment you got sick in. I thought that was really fascinating. And I know that that wasn't all about a physical environment as much as it was your mental state, and that you can't heal if you're going to stay in the same mindset over and over and over again. And so I think that it's really hard for families to go through bullying. It's hard for the kiddo who feels different. I think that parents need to really listen to their kids and know that and show them that they're on their side. Um, you know, it's it's getting worse than I would have hoped rather than better, seeing my own kiddos go through it.
Well, do you think the physical environment does though have something to do with it? Because I mean, if some people go back to their physical environment where they were bullied, it's automatic nightmares.
No, absolutely. And that is so true. So it probably has a, kind of a full full spectrum approach on that one. Yeah, it's hard to know how to navigate these situations. I did have a wonderful guest on the show. Her name was Tara Townsend, and she had an app called the Bullying Buddy app. And it's an app that actually records. A child has the ability to push one button on their phone to start recording. The recording then live streams to not only the parent, but maybe administrators or anybody else that might be on the plan that that person is signed up with. And they get real time viewing of what's happening in a bullying situation. So she's hoping to take all of the data from that and help create better bullying laws for schools and things. And I really hope that it has an effect.
I'll join on the hope train on that one.
Yeah. And I'll send her to you. Maybe she would be a great guest.
Maybe. Now, folks, we right back. We're gonna hear from our new friends, Kiwani. So let's get to it. All right, folks, we're back. And yes, if you're wondering, it is all child's play at Kiwani's. So, Sarah, I know this. Well, Sarah, actually, hold on. Well, Sarah, I didn't know this about you until I learned about it in a podcast. The abusive relationship you were in. So, can you tell me about the abusive relationship you were once in?
Oh, yes. Yes, that is true, isn't it? And I did open up really deep into a podcast once on Michael Stein's podcast.
That's where I
Um
found it.
yeah, that was a really that was, I think, the podcast that let me go kind of tell everything. And then I felt like I didn't have to hold anything back ever again after that. And I didn't feel like that held me back. So I was married at 19, and unfortunately it was a physically, sexually, and verbally, emotionally abusive relationship. Um, it was at the hands of someone who I trusted. So it made it really hard to understand and to navigate. But I did find the strength to leave on my own and go through the divorce on my own, and basically shipped this individual back to the state he once lived in, and I've never spoken to him since. The crazy part about all of that and all of this situation, and I probably still have some healing to do in some parts of that, but that his dad sends me, is one of my biggest followers, supporters, and fans on Facebook, and literally sends me a message every single day telling me he loves me and he supports me and he's so proud of me. And it was out of this, really hard relationship that I gained this second family that never let me go, that always loved me and always sent me love. And now I have this, wonderful, like, second family. And I've never, like I said, I've never spoken to my ex-husband since that day, 25 something years ago, longer maybe. And yeah, it's been crazy. And now, I've been with my current husband for, we're going on our 21st year together. And we're best friends, and he lifts me up and we lift each other up and help each other be better people every single day. And it's really all just based on honesty and consideration. So yeah, it's been a really crazy journey to think. I think sometimes I feel like I've lived 100 lives.
You said it was a sexually relation. You said it was a sexual relationship. How'd you get over your body being invaded in ways you didn't want it to be invaded?
It was tough. I mean, it was probably, I went through obviously a time where I wasn't dating and things, but I also found a relationship kind of in between, that he was much older than me and he didn't want, that wasn't his agenda. And so it gave me time, I think, for my emotions and body and everything to heal and to still feel like I was safe and could have a friend and still have love or want. I mean, it wasn't the love that I have now with, it was a different kind of like comfortableness rather than love, if that makes sense. So, but I think that it really gave me kind of like this space to heal. And I also became a massage therapist after that, and I think that learning about my body, respecting that in a different way, understanding it in a different way, also gave me that healing process to kind of go through that.
Well, what did the next person who was in the comforting relationship, let's just call him the comforting relationship guy, said, what did he do to show you, I'm not going to hit you. I'm
Yeah.
not going to invade your body. I
Mhm.
just want to help. And hey, it's going to
He
be
just
okay.
I mean, it started really off as just a friendship, and then it grew into like dating casually, and then I think we moved in with each other more out of convenience. I moved in with him kind of out of, kind of to save me from my current relationship that I had left, but he still was like stalking me and doing these other bad things. And so when I moved in with comforting boyfriend, that was just that. It was just to kind of like have a haven, a safe haven. He, yeah, he wasn't sexually driven. And so he didn't have those kinds of like, you know, actions towards me. So it was nice. And I think that at the same time, I also realized that there were parts of a relationship and levels of things that he couldn't give me. And I wanted those things in moving forward.
What did Dustin do to show you that I'm going to give you those?
Like kids, he never wanted to get married or have kids. And I knew that I wanted to be a mom more than anything. I knew that I'd be a great mom. I'd always wanted to be a mom. And I was an older mom. I didn't have my own kids till I was 33. And I have a stepdaughter, so I was an acting mom from for 24 years now. 20 years rather, but but I wasn't until I was in my 30s, biological mom. So I had a lot of time to grow between 22, 24 when I divorced him till 33 and I had my own kiddo.
Right. So you did go through the grieving phase when your son got diagnosed at 16 months old, right? Just double checking.
It's so interesting you say that too, because I had mentioned a little bit earlier that one thing I learned from an autistic individual that I interviewed was that the word grieving was a little bit upsetting to hear that his parents actually felt like they had to grieve for him like a death. And so I stopped using that term and recognized that being overwhelmed is a little bit more realistic. Yes, we were sad because once again, we had these expectations that led to disappointment that someday our kid would play baseball or go to the prom or rah, 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 all of these things we'd seen on TV or things that we'd done, but that's not real. When you get into parenting, you realize it's a day by day lesson in how to be humble and how to be patient and how to give another person dignity and respect, because ultimately that's how you want them to treat others in the world.
Well, I ask you this because I want you to go back there for a minute, back in there in your mind for a few seconds. And and I just want to know, what would you want to tell the version of yourself now when autism was a whole new world for you after learning your son was diagnosed at 16 months old?
Um, I guess more than anything that you're always where you're supposed to be. Even though things maybe seem hard that are going on around you, when you look back and see how things play out, you often find that they fall into patterns and you see that you're generally exactly where you're supposed to be. So I really try to be kind of faithful in that idea and stay confident that that's the case. That, things with DJ might be tough today. He might be still having a hard time and having his challenges, but as he grows and as we have more opportunities, there's nothing to say that he can't, become just as talented and well spoken as anyone else.
Right. I can definitely testify to that. So there's something else you said on an interview that you like to use, and that is a bow and arrow analogy. So can you tell us about this bow and arrow analogy?
Yeah, so my husband is great. He's the analogist. So
Me
he
too.
really
I like your husband already.
I know he likes you too, Sam. He likes you too. But he says, and it really helps too when he can kind of make these pictures for people to understand. But parents are like a bow and a child is like the arrow. And it doesn't matter how crafted or how amazing your bow is, or how long you spend crafting your arrow and making it the most perfect thing in the world, that once you shoot the arrow out into the world, the bow has no longer any ties to that arrow. It has no effect, no control. It has to let go completely. And that's just like being a parent, is that yes, you can love and support them and give them advice, but once you become an adult, you make your own choices and you have the, will to say yes or no and to keep or end relationships with your parents, without your parents, whatever. And I think that that's important. And so set your relationship up with your child so that they'll want to have you in their life in 10 or 15 years from now.
Right. Well, how are you using the bow and arrow analogy with your children currently? Because I know they're around at that age where it's okay, I want to be, the big and bad wolf and go live on my own, but I'm also the three little pigs because I'm scared a little bit of the wolf blowing my house down.
I think that we're now using this as knowing that our oldest child is married and on her own and making her own decisions. And there, some days she wants us to be part of her life and sometimes she doesn't. And we have to be very understanding and respectful of that she has her own things that she's going through now with her own family. And so I think it really gives place to, we did the best we could. We raised her with the best values, morals, ideas, whatever that we could give her. Now it's up to her to take them and use them however she decides. And if she decides she wants none of it, well, we did the best we could. We're still the beau. That's all it can be.
Right. So we'll wrap her up here. These are just for some fun questions. So, what is your paradise meal or favorite food, and why is it your favorite?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'd say I'd have to reinvent my favorite foods because I just had gallbladder surgery and I've had to change my diet, and everything that I eat is different now. So it used to be breads and cakes and all of the sweet things, and now I have to find healthier, better choices. So that's what I'm doing. Nothing specific I can think of yet.
Well, that's only time will tell, right?
Coffee. I love coffee, Sam. I'll have a coffee anytime, any day, anywhere. Coffee, coffee, coffee. I love coffee.
There you go. You like some sugar in it, or like
I like
black,
oat
or
milk. I just have oat milk creamer and that's it. And espresso and oat milk creamer. I'm good.
that's all right. I'll take that. I used to not be a coffee drinker, but I've been needing to do it to get to work and wake up a little bit. So, what is your favorite movie or TV show, and why do you like it?
Well, favorite is hard. I would say I'm not really like, don't hold on to favorites, but I'll tell you what I'm watching right now that I think is hilarious and that just came out on Netflix, and that's AP Bio. Hilarious. I love it. I think it's great. Um, what else do I like? I have a guilty pleasure. I lied. I do have a favorite show that I watch whenever I have a moment to watch it, and that's Love Island. And I would interview every Love Island person ever if I could make my SJ Childs show the Love Island special. So
Oh, the Island
that's
Special.
what
There
I
you go.
love.
Hey,
Bachelor in Love Island.
there you go. That's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Maybe what you could do is Love on the Spectrum Island. Combine the
Hey, there we
two.
go.
So, what's been your favorite vacation I've ever taken? Why did you enjoy that vacation very much?
Favorite vacation I've ever taken. Oh boy. Um, can I just say some favorite parts about a few different ones?
Sure.
I would say one time when I was a teenager with my dad in Mexico, we parasailed and I saw flying fish flying above the ocean. That was incredible. And my husband and I went to Mexico when we were dating. His grandpa took us to Mexico and we just had some really amazing experiences. We also were in a hurricane, so that was kind of an interesting experience to have.
Well, I gotta interrupt you, Sarah, because you're not the first one who can say that.
Yeah.
We done that too, except ours was
Oh,
just an F1.
heavens, right? Oh my gosh. But yeah, I would say those two are really special. Um, uh, every summer we went to a lake growing up for my childhood, and my husband and I were married at that lake. So amazing vacation event there. Yeah.
Right. So you kind of answered this one, but are there any good memories you want to tell our viewers about? If you do, why do you remember that memory the most? So before you answer, you kind of answered a sentimental memory, so thank you for making my life easier. But
Yeah, right?
let's actually end it off with the funny memory that made you fall on the floor laughing. It can be with one of the vacations, with your son, with your husband. Your call, you want to answer it.
Gosh.
Or it can even be about a time you made a fool out of your own self.
Well, that happens too regularly, probably. Funny time. Ugh. I don't know. Okay. A funny time where I can now laugh at myself is when one time when I was first dating my husband, I don't know why this came to me. This is so embarrassing. This is when I made a fool of myself. We drove up next to this group full of teenagers, and one of the girls yelled out to my husband, "I like your mustache." And I got so mad and I yelled back at her, "Well, I don't like your shirt." And I drove away really fast. We drove away and we were like, "I don't like your shirt. What are you about?" And so we laughed about that one for a really long time. I tried to come up with better comebacks that I could drive back around and say, but it was a little too late.
At least you didn't say something like, "Smash either."
That's what he said I should have said.
No, I
But
think that
I
would have
said, "I
been
don't
like,
like your shirt." So it was pretty funny. That
I
was
think
pretty
that I
silly.
think that woman would have been like, sweetheart, I don't have a mustache.
Yeah. Oh no, that was pretty funny. So I think that's the one that came to mind, I guess.
All right. Well, Sarah, thank you for your time. Is there any closing remarks you'd like to make?
Oh gosh. Thank you, Sam. It's so great to catch up with you. I love you and your mom and so proud of you and how far you've come and all the work we're both doing. High five to us both. Woo! And go check out my website, sjchilds.org. You can donate to the autism safety kits to keep vehicles and families safe. And emergency responders is what I meant to say by that instead of vehicles. But yeah, they're good stuff. So go look at all the missions you can help with.
It's all right getting mixed up because, hey, you got to keep your child safe in a vehicle somehow.
So that's for sure, right? Yeah, there's actually home stickers and vehicle stickers so that if the emergency responders come to your home, they can have that same information available to them.
You said homesick. Wait, home
Sticker like
stickers?
it's like a sticker that
Oh,
goes on your front door that
oh,
says
I thought you said
and
homesickers. I thought, what's a homesicker?
yeah, like it says, an autistic individual lives here. They may not communicate in an emergency. Please see a personal profile to get more information. And it's just like an information card that has their identification and the communication style, that sort of thing for emergency responders.
Well, Sarah, thank you for your time. Have a good one.
See you, Sam.